How's it going, everyone? It is Anime Outlet, and this is part 7 of What If Deku Had Water Breathing. And now, before we begin, I would just like to tell you all to please put your what if suggestions down in the comments section below. And now, let's begin. The murderous eye would stare on towards Izuku and Shinobu, or they would end up turning towards both of them. Ah, Izuku, Shinobu. It's nice meeting both of you here once again. A familiar voice would echo throughout the alleyway. As Izuku's ears would be pierced by the familiar noise, Izuku would realize just who it was. Bakugo! What are you doing here? Izuku would say with a striking voice as Bakugo would only give a bloody smile. It doesn't matter right now, Izuku. All that matters is today's finally going to be the day you die. See, I knew you were going to be here. I predicted it, you could say. I also knew Shinobu was going to be here, and I know today's going to be the last day you two are living together. Bakugo would say as Izuku would grip his sword tightly, pulling it out of its sheath, as Shinobu would do the same. Whoa, calm down. No need to get all feisty now with me, now do we? See, that wouldn't be very nice of you, now would it? You see, I just really would like to see both of you die. Okay, yeah, I know you want to see me die too, but the thing of the matter is, I've gotten a couple, how do we say that, enhancements to my quirk, which basically make it so I can't lose to you. It's quite the possibility that both of you will die, and the smaller possibility one of you will escape within inches of death. So I guess it's up to you to decide which ones you want. So, why don't we begin? Bakugo would say, widening his arms, showing his full body, revealing that he had at least gained 50 pounds of pure muscle since then, which it had only been like a month since they last saw each other. This just didn't look natural at all. As Izuku would be staring at Bakugo, he would end up wondering, what was the point of this? How did he gain such muscle so quickly? Was he using some sort of enhancement like steroids? Izuku would question himself, but it didn't matter as Bakugo would lunge right on towards both of them, slamming an explosion right into him and Shinobu's face, sending them flying backwards. Izuku and Shinobu would both slam back to a wall behind them. Ugh, my head, Izuku would mutter to himself, as Bakugo would be staring on towards Izuku and Shinobu. Oh, come on, you little weaklings. Is that all you got? Come face me already, it would say as Izuku and Shinobu would both rush on towards Bakugo, just running on towards him, as both of their swords would flail in the air, as both of them would seem to move seamlessly and symmetrical to one another, as Bakugo would, however, continue easily dodging each of these attacks. You guys are so weak. This is just too easy for me, Bakugo would say before slamming a backhand into the side of Shinobu's face, before with his open palm slamming an explosion into the other side of Izuku's face. As both of them would be lying on the ground, Izuku would get up holding his head with a daze, gripping his sword once again, water breathing. Before he could finish, Bakugo would run right towards him, tackling to the floor, punching him continuously right in the head. Shinobu would end up getting up before twirling her sword around, stabbing Bakugo right in the side of the chest. As Bakugo, however, would get up, nearly just yanking the sword out of his body. That's not going to be enough this time, Shinobu, Bakugo would say as blood would start filling up in Bakugo's mouth. His teeth started to be stained red. You see, I've changed for the better. So your simple tricks that have worked on me before, isn't going to work on me again, Bakugo would say with his voice deepening with sort of a hint of anger to it. As we now end up seeing Bakugo rush right on towards Izuku and Shinobu once again, as he would end up punching Shinobu right in the neck. He would be sent flying backwards, start to hold her neck, choking out small just levels of air into her lungs. Suzuki would get up, now gripping his blade even tighter. In just a wave of fury, he would rush onto Bakugo, launching his sword, flying in the air, stabbing into Bakugo's side, before Bakugo would pull the sword out once again. As Bakugo's wounds weren't healing, they were rather just there. So Bakugo must have had, or whatever the things he was taking must have been affecting his pain receptors, causing him to feel little to no pain at all. That's why he's being able to do something, being able to just take such high-powered hits, especially in such cognitive areas, like right by the shoulder or right in the stomach where tons of organs are. As Bakugo would be doing this, however, since he couldn't feel pain, he wouldn't be feeling it, the levels of toxins that were roaming in his body and bloodstream, as they would continuously start searching for even more blood to take over. As this blood would end up just rushing throughout Bakugo, as he would end up just smiling, thinking that he had won. It was clear both Izuku and Shinobu, they couldn't take him. It was obvious, even on 2-on-1, they weren't going to be able to defeat him, with the absence of his pain receptors and him being 50 pounds heavier of pure muscle. There really wasn't a chance for either of the two to take down just the Hulk that was Bakugo. So as Bakugo would be standing over both of them, he would end up sending more explosions into both of them as well. As sending all of these explosions into them, both of them would get some pretty serious injuries, some broken, just fractured, cracked ribs, a broken arm, leg, or limb or two, and even more injuries, fractures, and other things like that. As with these high-powered explosions, Bakugo would end up getting up once again, as with the adrenaline still running through both Izuku and Shinobu's veins, they would barely manage to stand up once again, with their legs just on the floor, barely able to hold each of them up. The numb, succumbing feeling would start to go over them. However, they knew they couldn't shut their eyes, as that would probably be the end of it if they were to do so. As both of them would be holding it there, they knew society didn't have a chance to remain the way it was if Bakugo were to continue living, and so they had only one other option. As Suzuki would hold his sword, staring on towards Bakugo's neck, as his eyes would be fixated on it, Bakugo would pick up on this. Suzuki would rush towards him, water breathing, first form, Izuku would say, jumping into the air, his sword by his side about to slash. However, before he would do so, Izuku would feel a punch of the fist go right into his stomach. Suzuki, smiling, would end up coughing out a couple of drops of blood before falling to the floor, as there Shinobu stood, with her sword right in the stomach of Bakugo, right through his major organs, as she had done it from low, causing her sword to go upwards, piercing through some of Bakugo's major organs, and then piercing the bottom of Bakugo's heart. As Bakugo would fall to the floor, as the poison would start finally just taking hold of Bakugo, and to the injury to his heart, Bakugo would start a slow, painful death of bleeding out. As Bakugo would be holding on to himself, feeling absolutely no pain at all. However, his body, while yes, he couldn't feel the pain, it was just hurting. It was in so much tremendous pain that he couldn't move. It was just so incredible. As Bakugo would be lying limp there, he'd be yelling at himself, "Come on! Get up!" He would be telling himself, but no, his body wouldn't get up at all. It just didn't want to. It couldn't, rather. As he would be yelling for it to get up, finally, after moments, his body would finally go numb, as his eyes would roll back, as he would end up dying, succumbing to his injuries. As sirens would end up being heard as bystanders called the police passing by it, as police and ambulances would end up arriving, taking away the two young people off to UA Hospital, where All Might would end up just be shaking his head, angry at himself. Should have been there! Be telling himself over and over again, and that these injuries were his own fault. He should have been there helping his own students, but yet he wasn't at all. He wasn't there helping them. He wasn't there just doing anything to help get them safe, keep them safe, and now they were both injured. We cut forward 2 months in the passing of the UA Sports Festival, as we end up seeing the recovery of both Izuku and Shinobu. However, it was summer break, and they had 3 or 4 months off of school, so they decided to use this to just train and get better, living off of the wilderness for 4 straight months, not going anywhere. They're living off the beasts of the land with only their katanas. This would help them get just more stamina, recovering better on their injuries, regaining their stamina that they lost, and even gaining more, getting stronger, getting more lean, allowing for them to be more flexible, be able to not be bulky, or for allowing for them to be faster. As when the second year of UA started, they would be the top of the class, which many would have not predicted because of their injury at close to the end of the year. And with them at the top of the class, they would end up easily passing through the second year and then the third year, with just a small lingering problem of the League of Villains. However, with the leader of it, Bakugo Katsuki, now dead because of Izuku Shinobu, the dead All For One and Shigaraki both having died by the hands of Bakugo in a prior incident due to the substances that Bakugo had been taking, as with All For One and Shigaraki both no longer around, the League of Villains would fade into obscurity, as Izuku and Shinobu would both end up becoming great heroes. However, they would never reach the ranks of top 10 or top 20 even. Yes, they might have captured more villains than thus the likes of All Might or Endeavor. However, they really focused on more just far out locations. They weren't ranked heroes, as they went for a more just Aizawa type approach, keeping it more secretive and just sort of as a secret agency, allowing for them to use their quirks in a similar way, as really wasn't much different ways they could use a katana, and so anyone who knew basic or advanced katana skills would basically be able to keep up with them easily by dodging some of the easy maneuvers. Although, yes, both Izuku and Shinobu, both smart and advanced in the ways of the katana, they both just wanted to keep things secretive, which would also allow for them to have a peaceful life, not living the likes of the media. And so they would continue up in the mountains, where eventually Shinobu and Izuku would both end up getting together, getting married, and having a happy family, which would be taught with just water breathing and just insect breathing as well. So that would be where the story would come to an end. Izuku and Shinobu, both some of the best heroes of all time, and when they would retire, they would go into a sort of hero hall of fame, which would shock many people when they were announced, as many people hadn't heard of them, and very few action figures were ever created of these two, as they were kind of seen as saviors of just the lost cities, cities that were mostly abandoned or lived in the poorest areas, causing for most people that lived in richer sides of a city wouldn't really know who they were. And that is where What If Deku Had Water Breathing comes to an end. I hope you all did enjoy this series, and if you did, please consider subscribing, as you can be notified when my other series do end up coming out. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.